Okay, this morning's class is going to be hostage survival. We will be discussing lesson objectives today, reasons behind taking of hostages, explain the different categories of hostage takers, describe personal contingency planning, describe the moment of capture, explain Stockholm Syndrome and several others, explain adjusting to captivity, describe actions to take during rescue or release operations, and explain the proper actions to take during the aftermath of a hostage situation. So, hostage taking represents a unique bargain struck over the value of human life. Whatever the immediate motivation, the basic purpose of hostage taking remains the same. Hostage taking is a way of setting up a bargaining position to achieve an otherwise unattainable goal. And a lot of people believe that hostage taking doesn't happen that much anymore. So the point of this slide is to demonstrate Americans can be taken hostage at any time and any place, and usually without warning. All right, so here we go. The hijacking in Karachi, Pakistan, 86, the Achille Lauro, which was a famous ship hijacking, and more recently, Americans held in Ireland, people captured in the Ukraine. This is from the State Department. Wrongfully detained Americans, people being held hostage. It even happens when you go on vacation. So, expats or Americans traveling overseas in whatever capacity are potential targets for theft, extortion, abduction, crimes of a sexual nature, racial or ethnical motivated criminality, and terrorism, and especially street crime or more organized criminality. There is also a potential to be caught up in any political or religiously motivated violence that's going on. They have riots in other countries too. Violent criminal activity, wars between gangs, shootouts, industrial disputes, and just general unrest in some of these countries. Hostages, if you're taken, are valuable to someone. They have to be, or they wouldn't have been taken unless it was a victim of circumstance. They are prominent. They are usually hated by the captors. It's to elicit publicity. It's seen as a source of trouble in some nations, or you could be a victim of circumstance. A lot of times people are picked because of these reasons, right? A victim can be chosen because of value to someone. This does not diminish the victim's value to his family or his employer or himself. The U.S. government usually will not negotiate with terrorists. There are numerous examples in which ransom demands have been met by private efforts. This may free the hostage, but unfortunately, this makes them want to commit the act again because they got paid. All right? A victim may be chosen because he is prominent, because of his job position, because of his status, or simply because he is an American. He or she is an American. A victim may be hated by his captors. The terrorist organizations may blame him directly for setbacks it has suffered, or may foresee disaster in the near future due to the individual's work. The U.S. advisors in El Salvador, especially the combat advisors, are not liked by the terrorists or weren't liked by the terrorists of the FMLN. And it happens today all over the world. People interfering in local activities get to hate. Because of the desire for publicity, terrorists do not kidnap a victim and then do not tell anyone. The higher the status of the victim, the more publicity the event will solicit. The victim may be seen as a source of trouble. In Colombia, the terrorist groups M19 and the FARC, which have made more than $1 million a year from cocaine, could look at special agents of the US DEA from this point of view. They're causing problems. and you're going to be chosen for monetary gain. Most of the time, the hostage is just an innocent victim of circumstance who happened to be at the wrong place and at the wrong time. Okay. Hostage scenarios. So, getting taken as a hostage, they're unpredictable. It could happen anytime. It could happen if you're in a bank, which has happened, at a business, on an airplane, in an airport terminal. It could happen anytime. You got to understand the difference between a criminal and a terrorist. A criminal doing it is usually, criminals and terrorists are the same basically, but a criminal doing it is usually victim of circumstance because they don't want the complications with law enforcement. Terrorists do it because, as discussed before, they want publicity, they want money, they want to get their stuff out. Duration depends on the situation and the objectives of the hostage takers. You need to make a rapid assessment of the situation, be aware of your surroundings, choose a course of action, and be decisive. Try to stay focused. So, hostage conduct, how you act, can enhance or diminish your survival. Hostage taking, by the very nature of the act, forces the terrorist criminal into stereotyped responses. The hostage becomes a pawn caught between the terrorists and the authorities. The terrorist becomes violent and tries to control the situation and move the event toward a completion of his objective, which is to get his goal and to get away. The hostage, by his conduct, can enhance or diminish his chances for survival in these situations. Hostage takers. The more the hostage understands about his captor, the better he will be able to predict the hostage holder's behavior and feel some degree of control, which can assist in diminishing your fear when you're in these types of situations. The true terrorist identity. Can you just, their background, their perspective, does the actions they're taking support their beliefs? All classification by category of hostage takers is an artificial matter. It's subjective. We categorize hostage takers merely to provide guidelines. The real identity of the terrorist can only be examined in the context of his relationship to the people, the organization, the places, the land, the country he's in, the ideals, and historical context in which he is associated. The question one must ask when examining any terrorist action is, does the ideology support the actual beliefs of a group, or is it merely a tool used to justify their actions and try to gain some legitimacy? The Sudanese Liberation Army leader Donald DeFreeze used Marxism as a cover label for committing multiple terror or criminal acts. Terrorist organizations are usually stratified. At the top of the pyramid-like structure, single urban, bright, and dedicated idealists can be found. Often this layer of terrorists comes from professions such as medicine and law, professional people. The lower down the ranks of the terrorist organization one looks, the greater the diversity of personality types and styles you will see. You will see the disillusioned, the mentally ill, the sociopaths recruited from prisons, and the ideologically motivated. There are those who are monetarily motivated, the mercenary-style terrorists, and those seeking some form of personal revenge. Almost all terrorist organizations form a cross-section of the population from which they emerge. The group performing the hostage-taking will in turn be a representative slice of the organization. This slice or group of people performs its operation in support of the larger organization's long-term goals. So, categories of hostage takers. So, the highest degree of threat for a hostage is when your hostage taker is one of these two categories: a political extremist or a religious fanatic. The political extremists, these hostage takers often operate with a military-like structure. This control factor may hold violence within their control factor for keeping you will possibly have planned limits of violence. Still within the group, there may be one or more terrorists whose propensity for cruelty makes them more dangerous. While they may be held in check by the group leadership, it is important to identify them early in the event and spend extra effort to avoid confrontation. Stay away from the bullies. The average age of most political terrorists range from 19 to 35. This youth factor heightens their fanaticism, blinds them to reasonable dialogue, and insulates them to appeals based on morals, decency, or fear for their own safety. While the political extremists are often prepared to die for their cause, they are not necessarily suicidal. When the chances for success dwindle, their primary concern often changes to escape. Political extremists generally only take hostages when they have some control over the general terrain where the event will take place, or when a friendly or neutral country may provide some type of shelter. Hostage taking by this group of terrorists can be viewed as a barometer of political extremism in a geographical area where you may be intending to work or travel to. So, religious fanatics. These hostage takers generally fit one of three categories. They are usually either a member of a recognized religion or a radical offshoot of that religion, a member of a cult, or a religious loner. No religion has been without its excesses. Rather than become cynical towards religions, we should acknowledge the unsavory aspects of the religious extremists result from human failings, corruption, and inadequacy rather than imperfection of things divine. Religious fanatics share a common unshakable belief in the righteousness of their cause and the appropriateness of their actions. Hostage taking and other terrorist-like actions seem to increase in number when traditional value systems are threatened, they're starting to change, or they appear to collapse. Look at Iran and Egypt back in the Shah's days. With the exception of the loner, religious fanatics have a charismatic leader and preach a form of exclusivity by which these select can enter heaven. Therefore, if you are not a member of the sect, you are the enemy. Like political extremists, religious fanatics can admit no fault in their dogma. If they perceive hostility toward their religion by the hostage, they may react with violence. Feeling superior because of their beliefs, they may be inflexible and express a preference for death. This death wish is strong in many religious fanatics. A second category of religious fanatic is found in the cult. Cults can be defined as religions without political power, such as Jim Jones Church in Guyana. While cults do not present as significant as a threat as more conventional and widely known religious extremist groups, they do contain the potential for violent confrontations and hostage takings for a wide variety of reasons. Some religious extremists who engage in terrorism may seek a violent death at the hands of a non-believer. Terrorists of this variety see themselves answerable only to God. Their conduct is often irrational and extremely defensive. They feel threatened by improper description of their leader, their beliefs, or their activities. They may believe that to die at the hand of a non-believer is the holiest achievement possible. Because of this belief, they may be suicidal. They may seek violent resolution to the situation by killing hostages to satisfy that drive. The lone religious fanatic, while not often encountered, could present the gravest threat. He'll be even more detached from reality and less rational than the one belonging to a group. This religious fanatic claims to be operating on divine orders directly from God. Because of that, he is probably the most dangerous and the least susceptible to reason. David Berkowitz took orders from God, who spoke to him through his neighbor's dog, Sam. Other types of hostage takers. You have the fleeing criminal. This criminal has been thwarted in the completion of his crime. He takes hostages on impulse to avoid immediate apprehension and to have a bargaining chip for his escape. He does not want to die. He has no cause to die for. This hostage taker tends to be impulsive. He will often settle for much less than originally demanded when he recognizes his no-win situation, provided he is able to save face, maintain his dignity, and not experience a sudden loss of power. A too sudden loss of power can create agitation, despair, and panic, which can lead to an impulsive killing of a hostage. Time is on the side of a peaceful resolution for this type of hostage taker. In this era of electronic media, criminals may resort to political rhetoric during the negotiation process to just try to get what they need to get away. The wrong person. This type of hostage taker seeks to notify society of the defects in the system or in the establishment because of some disagreeable experience, probably with DMV. He may be seeking redress of the experience or publicity of that wrong. This hostage taker tries to take justice into his own hands. Group dynamics outside the hostage situation become complicated because there are bound to be some groups or people who have suffered the same type of social injustice who will create a backing and support mechanism for the hostage taker. The situation is different from the political hostage taking that is motivated by a wish for personal revenge. The hostage taker is convinced that he is absolutely right and behaves in a grandiose fashion. These factors are accentuated by media coverage and also by the media coverage of sympathetic outside groups. In the hostage taker's mind, this may justify violence towards the hostages. The hostages may represent the system or whatever the hostage taker wishes to avenge, which therefore puts the hostages in a dangerous situation. This type of situation occurs in clusters because of the media and outside sympathetic group dynamics. Thus, media restraint is required to avoid a future epidemic of wrong person hostage taking. Gentle persuasion is required to convince the hostage taker that he needs to end the situation, and help will be provided. So the mentally disturbed person is a hostage taker. They are either mentally disturbed or under the influence of a narcotic. Hostage taking by a mentally disturbed person may be either spontaneous or planned. It is surprising to see how well planned the situation may be in spite of the hostage taker's obvious psychosis. For many mentally ill persons, there are intermittent periods of lucidity in the psychosis, so it may take an extended period of contact before craziness is revealed in the hostage taker's speech and actions. The delusions and hallucinations probably will not impair his ability to do what he wishes with the hostage holding situation. Rapport may be difficult to achieve and maintain with this type of hostage taker, but efforts to that end should be consistent. In almost all cases, the mentally ill hostage taker will also have a death wish that can only be satisfied by the murder of the hostages, suicide, or both. Hostages should conduct themselves in a very relaxed, laid-back, non-aggressive, non-antagonistic manner. They should avoid prolonged eye contact with the hostage holder and to allow the hostage holder to control the situation in the conversation. So, strategies for hostages. So there are specific strategies as well as some general rules of behavior a hostage should consider if he can identify the category of his hostage taker. All right. Determine the area of particular sensitivity, such as politics or religion, and avoid conversation on these subjects. If confronted, become an active listener and adapt to rather than adopt the hostage taker's value system. All right. Because religious hostage takers are very touchy and defensive about their religion and do not improperly describe or make assumptions about the hostage taker's religion or his religious views. Make every effort to establish rapport with the hostage taker, but never attempt to assume the role of a hostage negotiator. To be taken as a hostage by anyone is dangerous enough, but one can safely say that political extremists represent the most danger to civilians, Americans overseas, well, even nowadays in the States. because of the political ideology and other values as pragmatic and symbolic targets that Americans are. All right. Rapport. Hostage should make every attempt to establish rapport with the terrorist. It might be a deciding factor. Might be the deciding factor that saves his life when it comes time for terrorists to carry out the threat of executions if their demands are not met. He should make eye contact when possible without being obvious, especially during casual conversations. What comprises casual conversations? Small talk is better than no talk. If a hostage has photographs of his family, he should show them to his captors. If the terrorist wants to talk about the cause, the hostage should show an interest even if he is not sincere. Conversations pertaining to religion or politics, however, will probably put the hostage on dangerous grounds and should be avoided. The hostage should explain while he might not agree with his captors, he is interested in their point of view. He must not argue with your captors. You must accept the hostage taker for who he is according to his beliefs. This is a common courtesy. The hostage should accept his captor's culture in a gracious manner, yet not degrade his own. He should disregard the political or religious differences between himself and his captors and search for common ground between himself and them. One of the strongest indicators of accepting an individual's culture is to learn his language. As a start, the hostage should learn short phrases in his captor's language. While increasing his knowledge of the language, the hostage should work on their other cultural idiosyncrasies that may please the captors and not reinforce the feeling that he accepts and understands the culture. Many Americans are afraid to eat common dishes of other countries simply because they don't look or smell appetizing. Nothing can be more disrespectful than refusing to eat the very food that the terrorist or your hostage taker himself is probably eating. So, win the heart and minds. Don't be an asshole to him. So, for personal contingency planning, you need to get your personal affairs in order whenever you travel, especially overseas. A potential hostage can take certain steps to prepare himself for the rigors of captivity, which will in turn provide for some degree of peace of mind. To lessen the trauma on both himself and his family, the potential hostage should maintain his family and personal affairs in good order. He should keep his will current, drop appropriate powers of attorney, and take measures to ensure family financial security. He should also discuss plans and instructions with his family in case the event something does happen. He may have a packet made up containing instructions for his family, money, airline tickets, credit cards, insurance policies, and the name of persons to contact for survivor assistance, with instructions to open the packet in case he is taken hostage or in case of some other incident. So you got to be aware of your briefcase contents. All right, the potential hostage should not maintain sensitive or potentially embarrassing items in his briefcase or on his person. If taken hostage, he should be prepared to explain phone numbers, addresses, names, and other items carried at the time of capture. During captivity, he should try to convince his captors they have kidnapped the wrong person. The terrorist will not be convinced, but he should not give up trying. A compromising document found on person could destroy his argument that he is innocent and that the terrorists have taken the wrong person. So medicine. If you're going to travel and you could be a potential hostage, you should carry a week's supply of any essential medication when traveling or when stationed in a high-risk area. Working there, living there, etc. If taken hostage, you need to explain the importance of this medication to your captors. If necessary, he should request additional medication. After all, as a hostage, you're more valuable with his captors alive than dead. He should not be reluctant to accept what is provided. When you're traveling overseas in a different country, you need to know the generic name of the medication you need to take. So, the moment of capture, when you're taken hostage, this is a big decision to make. Should you resist or should you surrender? Resist, you have danger of being hostage versus danger of resisting. It can be dangerous to resist, but for a number of reasons, there are circumstances in which it may be more risky to be captured. If you decide in advance to try to escape, you need to plan and practice your escape. For example, you can judge possible points of interception and judge your best course of action to get out of the area. You can also mentally visualize plans to resist at home or at the office. Or do you surrender? You have to remember, the most dangerous time is at the moment of capture. The initial moment in capture is dangerous because the captors are tense and their adrenaline is flowing. They've probably never done this before and they're freaking out too. All right. In these circumstances, the assailants may commit unintentional violence without the slightest provocation. Innocent acts, such as a victim reaching into his coat or purse to produce identification or raising a hand to scratch his scalp, may be wrongly interpreted and precipitate a deadly response. The victim may reassure his captors that he is not trying to escape. It is unrealistic to believe that the target can escape the initial point in the capture when faced with a determined and well-armed terrorist. Many have tried to evade captors and have been killed or injured. In 1968, the U.S. ambassador to Guatemala, John Gordon Mine, was killed as he tried to escape. He took only a few steps before he was shot by a submarine machine gun burst. Other targets who have resisted were fortunate to receive only cuts, bruises, or smashed spectacles, an inauspicious way to begin an indeterminate period of incarceration or being held as a hostage. So things you can do to improve your survival odds. All right. Remain calm. When you're faced with such overwhelming odds, it is vital as the victim, you do not panic or try any sudden movements that are going to rattle the already anxious and adrenaline high captors. The hostage should keep in mind that the assailant has meticulously planned and executed the hostage operation, unless it's a victim of circumstance. The initiative, the time, the location, and the circumstances of the incident all favor the kidnappers. The manpower and firepower brought to bear on the incident leave little opportunity for escape. So control your instinctive behavior. Follow instructions. All right? Create a non-threatening image, and you want to avoid any personal injuries. It's just going to make your captivity that much worse. So the moment of capture. Even though the terrorists may use blindfolds, gags, and drugs at the time of the abduction, the victim should keep in mind the fact that the terrorists want you alive. You do no good to them dead. If they're going to kill you, they'd just do it and leave you there. He should therefore not be alarmed or resist unduly. Struggling will likely result in even more severe measures by the abductors. The terrorists may use drugs on the victim to physically control him, put him to sleep, or keep him passive. The truth serum drugs, if used on the hostages, have an effect similar to that of alcohol. Since the hostage has no choice on the drug application, he should not physically resist. The terrorist may use blindfolds or hoods on the victim to keep him from knowing where he is being taken to or to prevent him from identifying them later. The victim should not remove the blindfold even if the opportunity should arise, as it could leave the terrorist no alternative but to kill him. Hood over the head, there is a pretty good chance that you will make it out alive. Crap. All right, the moment of capture. Even though the terrorist may use blindfold gags and drugs at the time of the abduction, the victim should keep in mind that the terrorists want him alive. He should therefore not be alarmed or resist unduly. Struggling will likely result in even more severe measures by the abductors. They can beat you. It's going to make your captivity miserable. The terrorists may use drugs on the victims to physically control him, to put him to sleep, or to keep him passive. The truth serum drugs, if used on the hostage, have an effect similar to that of alcohol. Since the hostage has no choice to drug application, he should not physically resist. The terrorist may use blindfolds or hoods on the victim to keep him from knowing where he's being taken to or help prevent him from identifying them. The victim should not remove the blindfold even if an opportunity should arise, as it could leave the terrorist no alternative but to kill you. Hood over the head, there's a pretty good chance that you will make it out alive. Unable to make on, so just be there. Stay alert, especially during transport. Even if you're blindfolded and gagged during transport, that's only 2 senses. You can use your other senses to obtain information and help control fear and panic. You should occupy your mind by noting sounds, direction of movement, passage of time, and terrorist conversation. Any information you can acquire could be useful for later references. Another consideration is to find surfaces where you can leave fingerprints. This will assist law enforcement authorities in your recovery. Right now, we're going to talk about the Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, you've probably heard the term. It's pretty simple. It's an automatic, unconscious, emotional response to the trauma of becoming a victim. Right? It happens in high stress environments. You're going to develop an emotional bond with your captors, and it's going to become the philosophy is us versus them. Sequence of events. You're going to get defense mechanisms are going to kick in when something like this happens. All right? There's going to be denial, regression, and then you're going to identify with your captors. So denial. This occurs when the mind is overloaded by the traumatic experience. Gradual change from denial to delusion of reprieve. Okay? Regression. Use behavior that you're going to use behavior that has been used successfully in the past. From a past part of your life when you were totally dependent on someone else. All right? Identification occurs on the unconscious level. The mind seeks to avoid wrath or punishment by emulating behaviors. Then you will adapt to the hostage taker's values. A good example of this is boot camp. When you first get to boot camp, the recruit identifies with his drill instructor, first out of fear, but eventually he adopts the standards and values of the drill instructor out of admiration. He wants to be like him. So the Stockholm Syndrome, common experiences. Positive contact equals super reinforced feelings of gratefulness. Whenever they're good to you, give you food, let you use the restroom, talk to you, etc. Fulfill one of your needs. You're going to be grateful. Maybe a singular good physical and mental occurrence. One positive contact compensates for many negative experiences, beating, rapes, and murder. It's similar to the battered wife syndrome. Since in identifying with the human qualities of the captors, the hostages may relate to their captors. Dr. Frederick Hacker called this the poor devil syndrome. The terrorists are going to talk about their own suffering and why they're doing this and how depressed and everything else they are. You're going to transfer your anger from the terrorists to the people that have done this to the terrorists. And you're going to assume or want them to be entitled to protection and care that everybody else has. You also have to remember that you're going to extend your willingness to tolerate situations beyond the logical limits to survive. Most individuals anticipate a limit to pain and threats. That extent is the logical limit threshold. Hostages extend their preconceived limits for far beyond what they expected they would take, and they do this to survive. So the hostages view. This is some of the views of hostages after they were taken out of captivity. Alan Cornwell endorsed his captor's demands that Israel release the Lebanese prisoners. Thomas Murray, I really feel that being taken hostage was a way the people here had to point out that there are hostages in Israel. Reverend Lawrence Jenko, they were basically gentle people, very religious, very prayerful. Jimmy DePalmer, them all went out of their way to be nice. James McLaughlin told Dan Rather of CBS about the hostages getting impatient with the lack of initiative in Washington, and Reagan should ask Israel for freedom of those 700 Lebanese detainees. John Testrake, I think it's more a sense of merely seeing the other person's viewpoint. Now, do you think they had any of these beliefs prior to being taken hostage? Probably not. All right. Stockholm Syndrome, the stress from this may produce apathy. It's going to you're going to want to limit your participation. You're going to start losing touch with reality the longer it goes. And you're going to start worrying about impending rescue and negotiation efforts. This can all lead to long-term emotional instability or PTSD. So, can Stockholm Syndrome enhance your survivability? Possibly. Who becomes the victim? You have to recognize, understand, and adapt to your situation. And remember, the Stockholm Syndrome is a two-way street. As you get more and more in line with them, they're going to become more and more friendly to you. That increases your survivability. Syndrome responses. So, most captives will achieve at least the minimal level listed. Point out that each of these responses work for both captive and captor. All right, so your minimum level is one sees the events through the perspective of his captors. The medium level is the victim respects and recognizes the terrorists for their gallant efforts and the victim begins to lose touch with reality. It's when you're starting to say it's us against them. And the highest level is when the victim impedes the efforts of the rescue force and negotiation teams, and usually people at this level are going to suffer long-term emotional instability. So there are other syndromes too. The London Syndrome. So this was a psychological phenomenon in which hostages act with belligerence and are openly confrontational and non-cooperative with kidnappers. The central characteristics are hostages act in a manner that could court confrontation with the kidnappers, can be isolated member of the hostage group, and aggressive posture and attitude likely is adopted. Causes. People do this because they're frustrated and their aggression is due to lack of control over their circumstances. So this was named after the 1980 London Iranian embassy siege when one of the hostages continuously argued with the kidnappers against the will of the other hostages. Eventually, he was chosen as the first hostage to be killed because they just wanted to get rid of him. Don't be a troublemaker. So the Lima Syndrome. This is a converse of the Stockholm Syndrome. It's a psychological phenomenon in which abductors express empathy and sympathy toward their hostages. The central characteristics are feeling of loyalty, affection, and empathy developed for hostages, likely to bring food and amenities, and they will establish rapport with the hostages. This can lead to kidnappers releasing the hostages. Causes of this are kidnappers disagree with each other over the abduction plan and plan for the hostages, or the kidnappers lack the psychological will or resolve to keep a hostage detained. And this was named after the release of hostages from the Japanese embassy in Peru in 1996. Members of the militant Tupac Amaru took hundreds of hostages at a party held at the Japanese ambassador's official residence. Hostages were released just hours after the kidnapping as the kidnappers began to feel sorry for them. Surviving the stages of captivity. So, 3 stages of hostage captivity is going to be intimidation, custodial, and resolution. Role playing within captivity. Each hostage and the terrorist has a role. Behaviors can be changed by the behavior of the other. How you're treated is going to affect how you treat them, and how you treat them can affect how you're treated. Surviving stage 1, the initial or intimidation stage. Terrorist goal during this stage is to assert power and control. They have to be in charge. All right? They're going to dehumanize you because they can't look at you as human and treat you the way they're going to treat you. And they're going to exploit this to gain media attention. During this time, it's going to be tense and anxious. The terrorists could be on drugs to try to calm themselves or hype them up. They're going to be brutal or violent if they need to be, and they're going to act fast. Any resistance will be overcome with excessive force. You have to deal with actions against authority and the control rapidly and severely the people that they have, or else they're not going to have control. All right? Hostages goals. Survive stage 1. Recognize the captor's goals and delay or resist each by using strategies and tools, but not doing it overtly to where you are going to be punished. Remember, most hostage operations are meticulously planned and executed. The initiative, the time, the location, and the circumstances of the incident all favor the kidnappers. The manpower and firepower brought to bear on the incident leave little opportunity for it to escape or to resist. Terrorists want you alive, so stay alive. You are no good to them dead. So how are you going to adjust to captivity? Stage 2. Middle and the custodial stage, the hostage captivity environment. So, living conditions. One of the best ways to gauge what living conditions may be like in the captive's situation in a foreign country, well, even in the States, is to look at the living conditions of the local people or on the lowest level of substance. The hostages may be maintained on an even lower level. The existence of hostages endurers varies greatly from incident to incident. For example, hostages may be held for days on a bus or an airliner or a train, where heat and lack of adequate water, food, and toilet facilities can be almost unbearable. In some hostage situations, the hostages are locked into another room, or they may be in the same room with other hostages, but are hooded or tied, gagged, or forced to face the wall away from their captors. There are so many situations that this happens that it's going to be hard to discuss. All right. Remember, your living conditions are usually going to be one level lower. It's going to be dehumanization, if possible. And they're going to call them people's prisons in some places. All right? During the seizure of an office or a residence, hostages may find themselves in familiar, comfortable surroundings in which they have worked or lived. Kidnapped victims, on the other hand, are frequently forced to live in makeshift people's prisons in attics or basements or in remote hideouts. The cells of these prisons are usually quite small and in some cases prevent the hostage from standing up or moving around. Sleeping and toilet facilities may be scarce, consisting of a cot or mattress and a bucket or a tin can for body waste. In some instances, toilet facilities may not be provided, forcing the hostage to soil his living space himself. Such an experience may be further compounded by total lack of privacy and the feeling of utter helplessness and dependency on the terrorists for every necessity of life, which is what the terrorists want. It will be very difficult for the hostage to maintain his dignity and self-respect under such conditions, and it is very important that he strive to do so. By maintaining his dignity and self-respect, the hostage may cause his captors to empathize with him, which in turn could lessen their aggression towards him. Most people are unable to inflict pain unless their victims remain dehumanized. So here are some actual hostage locations that have been used in the past. Home attics, basements, rooms, embassies, hotels, offices, vehicle trunks, bus seats, airliners, mountains, or remote jungle encampments. Typical permanent locations, usually quite small, prevent the hostage from standing up or moving around. Sleeping and toilet facilities are going to be scarce. They're going to consist of a cot or a mattress, bucket or tin for body waste, and sometimes deliberately no toilet because they want you to feel dependent on them. Rural environments, jungle woodlands. There's going to be limited shelter, poncho, tree branches, lack of provisions. Good opportunity for escape if you think you could survive in that type of environment. Maybe deep in unfriendly territory where you have to go for a long time. So you need to maintain your dignity, keep a good appearance, keep clean, and have a positive attitude. So it's essential to keep a good appearance as much as possible under the existing conditions. If the hostage is unable to wash his clothing for extended periods, such measures such as brushing off dust, straightening his clothes, tucking in his shirt tails, and smoothing out wrinkles are necessary to help his overall appearance. The hostage should bathe whenever possible. However, if this is not possible, he should keep his hands and face clean, not only for appearance but for health. One of the most prevalent healthcare problems that occur during extended periods of captivity is that of oral hygiene. If a toothbrush is not available, the hostage may fabricate one by wrapping a rag around his index finger or shredding the end of a stick. Emphasis should be placed on massaging the gums. Other measures that will improve the hostage's appearance are keeping his hair, mustache, and beard well groomed or keeping his fingernails clean. One of the most important aspects of sustaining dignity is to maintain a positive attitude. The hostage should mingle and converse with the captives if this is allowed while going about his daily routines. He should assist others who need help and assume the role of leader if he needs to. He should maintain an optimistic attitude that will allow him to confront the problems and the stress of captivity and deal with them accordingly. Smiles are contagious. The hostage should wear one. In contrast to this, a hostage who is given up, who has no interaction with other hostages, and is only concerned with his own well-being, will certainly stand out in a negative way. The pessimist or introvert will find these times much more difficult. His ability to maintain his dignity and self-respect will be weakened, even though self-respect and dignity may be the keys to retaining a status as a human being in the eyes of the terrorists. So maintaining a good appearance and sanitary and health. Brush off dust and dirt, straighten clothes, tuck in shirt tails, smooth out wrinkles, keep hair and mustache, beard real groomed, and keep your fingernails clean. Bathing, off as possible. Take a bath whenever you can, or at least wash your hands and your face. Keep your hands and face clean for health. Ask to take a bath. Improvise bathing devices, washcloths with clothes and spit. Take sun baths, paper napkins, leaves, sponges, cotton and wool. Oral hygiene. This will get you in trouble. It's the most prevalent physical problem. Improvise a toothbrush. Wrap a rag around your index finger, clean your teeth, massage your gums. Shredding an end of a small stick, making it look like a toothbrush and using that. Getting toothpicks. Massage your gums. There's nothing worse than having a sore tooth. So, two excellent examples of individuals who are able to maintain dignity and self-respect were Sir Geoffrey Jackson and Dr. Claude Fly. Both were held by the Tupamaros in Uruguay. Sir Jackson, the British ambassador, was abducted and held for 244 days. He remained in thought and action the ambassador and the Queen's representative. Dr. Fly was held for 208 days. During that time, he wrote a 50-page Christian checklist which he used to analyze the New Testament. Like Jackson, Fly was able to maintain his own world and insulate himself against the hostile pressures that were against him. Both developed an inner peace and acceptance of their surroundings while not giving up their desired goal of freedom. So fear, terrorists use it to control, intimidate, and wear down the hostages and the negotiators. They may induce fear by loading and unloading weapons in the presence of the hostages, displaying excessive fits of anger, resorting to physical abuse, and staging mock executions. The fear of death is greatest during the first few hours of captivity. As the initial fear subsides, the victim may begin to feel he owes his life to his captor. As additional time passes, feelings of fear may be transferred from the terrorists to the authorities. Research has shown that most hostages die or are injured during the rescue attempts. Death certainly is a real possibility. Statistically, however, the odds favor the hostage being released alive. Time. The passage of time without rescue or release can be depressing, but it does work to the hostage's advantage. The longer a hostage is held in captivity, the greater his chances of release or rescue. Time is a factor in the development of the Stockholm Syndrome and in rapport building efforts. A hostage should avoid setting anticipated release dates or is allowing his captor to establish these dates or these types of milestones for him. Thinking that it will be home for the holidays is you're just setting yourselves up for an emotional fall if it doesn't happen. Boredom is going to be one of those big things that's going to hit you. It's gonna be your companion while you're in captivity. The hostage must aggressively face the challenge of captivity by engaging in creative and mental physical activities. The hostage should develop and maintain a daily physical fitness program. Exercise may be difficult due to cramped space or physical restraints on the arms. If possible, however, the hostage should start and maintain a regular program of running in place, push-ups, and sit-ups. Isometric exercise may be substituted to overcome space or physical restraints. Staying physically fit may be the deciding factor should an escape opportunity present itself. However, the hostage should ensure that his caloric expenditure does not exceed his caloric intake. The hostage should engage in creative mental activities such as reading, writing, or daydreaming. He should ask for reading and writing materials and request permission to listen to a radio or phonograph or to watch television. Such requests have been granted in the past. This may enhance the hostage's rapport building activities. Other ways that he may keep active are to use deliberate and slow methods when brushing his teeth, take hours to make the bed, or perhaps study the activities of ants or other insects parading in and out of the cell. One hostage imagined he had different members of his family join him for the day. If it was a day of worship, the hostage may mentally walk through the various parts of the services for his religion. Other challenges for hostages when they're in captivity. Insomnia. Many captives speak of difficulty sleeping due to the atmospheric fear, changing the environment, etc. This is only going to weaken you mentally and physically. Worry, fear over the situation, likelihood of freedom, intent of the captors, etc. You have a sense of helplessness. Your morale. A low morale will impact the hostage's approach, language, and attitude to the captors in a negative manner, potentially leading to clashes, etc. Positive morale could help maintain a calm and collected approach when dealing with your captors. Boredom. Language barriers often mean little conversation with captives. Often little to do, many captives have requested reading materials, including religious texts, and these have been granted. Disorientation. Long periods of captivity, months, years, can lead to disorientation over time and dates. Keeping track of days helps maintain a sense of temporal orientation. Restricted movement. Captives can be constrained to small accommodations and chained to stationary objects. Maintaining muscular strength becomes important in these instances. Asking for release to relieve themselves, do exercise under guard is an important, according to captive accounts, who said they requested these things while they were captive and they let them do it. All right. Malnutrition and dehydration. Being a captive often means a drastic change in your diet and rationing. It's expensive to keep hostages. As a result, captors often reduce the amount of food captors are given, or the hostages are getting. This can also be a tactic. Starvation diets will weaken a hostage and make them easier to subdue. Torture. Mental torture is particularly common, like we discussed before. loading and unloading weapons, shooting outside the cell, etc. They will mess with you. All right. Access to medicines. Death in captivity is often linked to medical complications exacerbated by lack of access to medicines. So stress is going to have a significant psychological impact, which can cause unexpected and altered behavior in you. Definition of stress is the reaction of the body to any demand made upon it. So stress management. Is stress good or bad? Depends on your degree of control. We can further define stress as a body condition that occurs when a person faces a threatening or unfamiliar situation. Stress causes a person's energy to strengthen and increase temporarily. Not all stress is bad. A certain level of stress is necessary for optimal performance. Stress causes bodily changes that may help an individual overcome challenges and danger. A person's physical condition affects his ability to handle stress. An individual's response to stress also depends on whether he feels in control of the situation. A difficulty may cause a little stress if a person can predict, overcome, or at least understand it. All right, stress management. All right. There are several ways of exerting control to influence our psychological reaction and limit harmful stress. One is to maintain your confidence. Maintain confidence in your ability to survive with honor. Maintain confidence in your country's ability and desire to end your captivity, and maintain faith in your family and in your God. Maintain your physical condition. Install a program of exercise on the first day of your captivity. Eat what you are given, no matter how strange or unusual it may seem. Take care of any family matters that would have caused you worry if you were captured. Accept what you cannot change because of the captivity. Maintain sleep discipline and avoid sleeping too much or not enough. Practice recreation. Be inventive. Reading, writing, radio, or TV usage, interaction with other hostages in a positive sense can provide opportunities for periods of recreation. Maintain a daily schedule. Keep yourself occupied and have a purpose each day. Plan a schedule for each day and attempt to stick to it. Do not just become complacent and stay in bed or sit and do nothing. Keep your sense of humor. Give nicknames to your captors. Joke about your situation. Maintain a positive mental attitude. The most deadly aspect of long-term captivity is the mental lassitude, exhaustion, lethargy, and the depression that sets in. You must constantly, vigorously oppose it. Verbally talk yourself down. Talk yourself through tough situations. Don't let depressing thoughts take over. Scream a silent no to stop depressing thoughts and thoughts of catastrophe. Accentuate the positive. Be positive. Maintain your religious values. Religious values will provide you a source of strength in your captivity. Learn or devise methods to communicate. Start learning the language. All right. Keep faith with your fellow captives. They will be a major source of strength, and nurture this faith constantly. Remember, your captor may attempt to divide you guys. Stick together, help each other. So stress management, exerting control, meditation, find a quiet environment, pick a mental device, keep a passive attitude, get in a comfortable position, tighten and release your muscle groups, slow your breathing. Do not set a time to be common for what you consider success. All right. You might be able to meditate real quickly and fall into it. And some people, it may take time. First day, you can do it for 5 minutes. And by the end, you're doing it for an hour. Okay. Just hang in there. Illness. A side effect of captivity for some hostages is weight loss. Although this loss may be considerable, it generally does not cause health problems. Weight loss may occur even with inadequate food supplies, since captives often lose their appetite. In some cases, hostages may suffer gastrointestinal upset, including nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and/or constipation. Although these symptoms can be debilitating, they usually are not life-threatening. Since the terrorists are primarily concerned with keeping their hostages alive and well, the hostage, you, should not hesitate to complain and ask for medication. Terrorists want their hostages alive and are not likely to take chances by providing the wrong medicine. In a number of cases, terrorists have provided medical care for hostages who are suffering from illness or injury. So, rapport. The hostage should make every attempt to establish rapport with the terrorists. This may be the deciding factor that saves his life when the time comes for the terrorists to carry out their threat of execution if their demands are not met. So, rapport. You want to do eye contact. Keep trying to get into casual conversations. Show photographs to your families. Accept their culture, language, food, and the cultural idiosyncrasies. You need to make every attempt to establish rapport with the terrorists. Remember, small talk is better than no talk. You want to humanize yourself in their eyes, which is why you show pictures. Talk about your family, your kids. Ask about their family and kids. Do they have pictures? Do not argue with your captors. Okay, so isolation. Social isolation may be better understood by the term solitary confinement. The captive is completely denied interpersonal contact. Perceptual isolation is the denial or overuse of one of the senses to deny the hostage outside stimuli, thus creating social isolation. Headphones, blindfolds, or tents, or small enclosures may be used to accomplish this goal. Here, the captive must rely completely on mental activities to adjust to and to overcome each type of isolation. In isolation, the hostage may have less opportunity to build rapport with his captor, so he must concentrate his efforts on ways to achieve rapport. So, there is going to be death in captivity. These cases are relatively rare in captivity and mean no ransom in captivity, because when someone dies, there's no ransom or no bargaining chip. Causes are from chronic illness, infections caused by wounds, security force operations, and hostages or collateral damage. That means getting killed in the rescue attempt, or killed resisting kidnapping or trying to escape during captivity. Rescue and release. So after you've adjusted to your captivity, the hostage is faced with a new possibility: rescue or released. Hostages are taken generally to establish a bargaining position. Eventually, that position will lead to a rescue or release if it is not met. Each eventuality has special considerations. So, for the rescue, often the first hostage execution will serve as a green light for rescue forces. Hostages must be mentally prepared for rescue attempts, as they represent significant danger for everybody. Most hostages who die or are killed during rescue attempts. It is therefore critical that the hostages be especially alert, cautious, and obedient to instructions should he suspect such an attempt is imminent or occurring. When the rescue begins, the safest response is for the hostage to drop immediately to the floor and avoid any sudden movement, especially with his hands. During the rescue operation in Entebbe, a female hostage threw her hands up to praise the Lord as the commandos came bursting in, and she was shot. Sudden movement also caused the deaths of 2 hostages in the South Moluccan train incident when Dutch commandos assaulted the train. You as a hostage should not attempt to run or pick up a gun or attempt to assist rescue forces in any way. You could be mistaken for a terrorist and shot. Just get on the ground, cover your head, and wait. After order has been restored by the rescue force, the hostage may be handled roughly. This is a common procedure for the rescue forces who must separate the hostages from the terrorists. Some of the terrorists may have thrown their weapons away en masse in an attempt to disguise themselves as hostages. This occurred during the 1980 rescue operation at the Iranian embassy in London. British SAS discovered terrorists hiding among the hostages after their initial assault. Release. The moment of release, like the moment of capture, is dangerous. The terrorists are giving you up. This isn't a rescue. The bargaining position has been met, and they're giving up their chip. The hostages may feel threatened and even panic from the disruption of their normal activities. They have to leave their safe zone to get you out there. The hostages might know something is happening, but may not know it is a release. The hostages of TWA Flight 847 were herded into a schoolyard at night, but did not know they were being released until they were turned over to Syrian representatives. The rules the hostages should adhere to are simple. Pay close attention to the instructions the terrorists are giving you when they release you, and do not panic or attempt to run. So the aftermath. Mentally, the hostage must now begin to prepare himself for the aftermath of a hostage ordeal. Media may be the first challenge encountered after the release or rescue. You will be provided guidance, and somebody's going to act as a buffer for you. If the hostage is confronted by the media and chooses to respond, he should say nothing that might be harmful to his fellow hostages who may still be in captivity. He should keep his comments to himself as short as possible and limiting the statements, "I am thankful to be home," etc., etc. He should say nothing that is sympathetic to the terrorist cause, which may endanger hostages still activity. And before you even see the media, they are going to debrief the heck out of you. You are going to get so tired of talking about it. They're going to know everything you know before they let you go, the rescuers. The hostages should be mentally prepared to be debriefed by the government or military personnel. Once released from captivity, you need to write down everything you can remember about the incident to aid in the debriefing process. The location of the guards, the description and placement of weapons and explosive, any other information that may prove of value to the authorities. You need to keep in mind that although the information you provide the authorities may seem insignificant, you could aid in the release or rescue of other hostages who remain in captivity and assist in bringing their captors to trial. Something you notice could be the final piece in the puzzle they were looking for, okay? Many hostages, or you could emerge from these ordeals with hostile feelings towards your government. You may feel as the government should have been more active in your release, they didn't act soon enough, they negotiated too long, whatever the case was. You might feel that way towards the government or even the organization like your company that got you out of there. Many victims, after having undergone a hostage ordeal, experience feelings of guilt for the way they conducted themselves during captivity. A hostage may suffer defeats in captivity and once released may need professional help to help him sort through his feelings and emotions. If this assistance is available, the hostage should ask for it and use it for sure. Post-event. So PTSD, transitions from feeling of helplessness, despair, and isolation to freedom and sensory overload, can be expected in any case like this. It's traumatic. All right. You could get survivor's guilt, which develops as a result of surviving the kidnapping where another person could have been killed or die in captivity. This can manifest itself also into blame, and you could be going, what could I have done? Why wasn't it me? Etc. You're going to need closure, part of the post-incident therapy, feeling that the incident has finally come to an end. Most of the case studies have written books on their deals as a type of therapy to help them and to help others. Suicide happens. Seek help. Most common suicide take place in an abduction for rape cases. All right. Trying to fit back into society. It's going to be difficult fitting back into society after an extended captivity, depending on what was done to you, what you needed to do to survive, how you were treated, etc. Seek help. Just remember, I'm going to say this. We've talked about this in all our other classes. We'll talk about it now. Be aware, be alert, keep a low profile, be unpredictable. Don't become a target. Don't become a victim. Don't stand out so much that somebody thinks you're of value to their cause. Okay? So that it was the course Hostage Survival. I apologize for any interruptions. Uh, I hope you learned something from it. If you need to, contact me. I can expound on areas. I can give you handouts. Thank you and have a good day.